The aftermath of the Darlington race saw more driver suspensions take place than we're used to. Henrietta Laverne, Mike Howard, and Laura Cyrus were all suspended due to their antics during the race. Though in the case of Laverne and Howard, their suspensions came as a result of their behavior over the last few weeks. Nicole Moreno will take over the 610 for tonight. Alex Graff will go to the 50, and Zach Duff will go to the 49 car. A bit of foreshadowing to Duff's future in the TM Master Cup Series, perhaps? Ricky Navarro was also sent to the rear of the field for causing the accident that injured Phil Summers. Summers will be replaced in the 91 Griesberger machine by Wyatt Dyers. And now I will hand it off to Scott. Thank you, Earl. The start of the race was delayed by 20 minutes after the drivers attempted to throw candy into the stands during their parade laps. It turns out you can't do that too well, and the drivers are not going to be making any friends with the cleanup crew. Robert Scott took the Smash Beer Pole Award for round 1, and he's going to get a huge jump on the field. Gary D'Souza started on the outside in the 149 car, and his car owner Mark Ildis protested this start. However, officials decided that Scott just caught the rest of the field sleeping. But that gap he opened up would be reduced to nothing as Shane Lake gets into his teammate Lucas Sweeney, coming off of turn 1, collecting Rachel Rainsford, and Sweeney goes hard into the inside wall. I have no idea what Shane Lake was doing, and I seriously doubt that there will be kind words thrown around in the next Pearson-Sweeney team meeting. Rachel Rainsford came in and made it 3 wide, but Lake was pushing up the track before that. Sweeney went into the wall driver's side first, and he did appear to have a hard time getting out of his car, but he managed to find the strength to throw his helmet at Lake as the cars came around under yellow. Libby Bell's engine would grenade under caution. Tough break for Bell, who was very inconsistent at the start of the year, but has found a lot of speed as the season got going. Robert Scott leads on the restart with Gary D'Souza in second, and once again, Scott gets a great start. We have not heard any plans for next year from Evans Motorsports, but with that win at Mosport and the speed they've been showing in general this season, I would be very surprised if they didn't come back. Jacob Eichholz took over third place in the point standings after Darlington, and now he takes over the lead with a huge burst of speed that you'd expect from the star of a bad racing movie. A lot of drivers said during practice that the outside lines had no grip at all. Kurt Walker has a tire go down in the early stages of this run and will have to pull into the pits. He lost a couple of laps getting his tires changed. Ricky Navarro had to start last due to that penalty he received after Darlington, but he has already made his way up into the top 25. Taylor Brillin makes a huge run of her own and sweeps by Eichholz to take the lead. Like Eichholz, Brillin has been very fast over the last few weeks and has made up a lot of ground in the point standings. But Kurt Walker would be making up a lot of ground on the track. His new tires are prevailing as everyone else's start to wear out. Walker has easily been the most fun to watch as he cuts his way through traffic, and you see Alex Carson getting into his car owner, Andy Pearson. So the Pearson-Sweeney cars are not quite done getting into each other yet. The leaders would start to catch lap traffic, and if you look in front of Taylor Brillin, you see that Kurt Walker has passed everybody. So now Walker is back to being just 1 lap down. Walker announced before the weekend that he would step down from his full-time driving role, but you can clearly tell that he still has the drive to get as much out of his car as possible. Here is Jarko Forsström in the 38. He's about to be put a lap down by Taylor Brillin, and he gets into the wall, and across the nose of the 65 car. That caused a bit of front-end damage to Brillin's machine, and you see a lot of rear-end damage to the 38 car. The second caution comes out on lap 48 as Damien Snyder pushes up into Mamba Kumengu and goes spinning down the backstretch. He gets tagged by Jacob Eichholz, but there wasn't too much damage done to anybody involved. Taylor Brillin continues to lead after everybody pitted under that yellow, but she is stuck behind several cars that were either a lap down or on the tail end of the lead lap, and she had Jeremy West and Jarko Forsström behind her as a cushion on Jacob Eichholz in second place. And there's trouble behind the leaders as Damien Snyder again pushes up into somebody. This time it's Wesley Savage. Joseph Howard and Rip Tyler go spinning. Todd Stater gets a piece of that, but he manages to keep his car straight. Damien Snyder has really dropped the ball over the last few laps. That first incident could probably be dismissed as a result of tires wearing out, but there's really no excuse for this to happen right after pit stops. Everybody on the tail end of the lead lap on that last restart got to come around and rejoin the back of the field. However, Jacob Eichholz still has Jarko Forsstrom and Jeremy West in between him and Taylor Brillen. Michael Madrigal starts to come up towards the front of the field as we approach 20 laps to go. Madrigal is in his rookie season, but already picked up his second career win last week at Darlington. And if you look behind the 64, you see that Ricky Navarro has moved up to third from last on the grid. Blake Camphausen is also making a late race charge. Camphausen has made very few starts in the series, but he already seems to be mastering the art of waiting patiently until it's time to go. I will not be surprised if he wins a race very soon. Amy Patty's car suffers a mechanical problem and she slows on the apron. That pretty much sums up her season. It seems that she'll often have a great run going, but things suddenly go sour. Caution 4 comes out as Harry Enola and James West get together while trying to go 3 wide with Packer Carroll. West gets turned into the wall and back into the 45 car. Car number 69 will be taken out of the race. Taylor Brillen continues to lead inside 20 laps to go. Amy Patty will be starting in between her and second place David Krikorian. Brillen gets away as Patty holds up the 32 car. But Patty would eventually get up to speed and power by the 65 car, opening up the door for Krikorian. Ricky Navarro is up there in the third spot with Zach Gott in fourth, taking over the 7 car after Bruce Wilkinson failed a drug test before the race started. And now Navarro makes a huge charge. He is neck and neck with Krikorian down the backstretch, and Navarro will have the line going into 3. The battle for the lead is really starting to heat up in the closing laps of the race, but then we had a caution. Amy Harrison takes Kurt Walker into the wall, collecting Jeremy West and Mumba Kumengu. In fact, Kumengu got into both the 102 and the 98. Jeremy West would drop out of the race. Ricky Navarro leads on the restart. He is looking for his first win since the season opener in 2005. In fact, that was his only victory so far in the ARLA Elite Series. But it's obvious that he is a very strong car tonight as he tore through the field from last place. But second place Taylor Brillen has also been very strong, and Navarro will also have to deal with David Krikorian, Zach Gott, and Blake Camphausen, who have been coming up through the field in these final laps. Krikorian is under Brillen for the second spot, but he is still coming. He has a huge run off the corner. The 32 and the 34 are now side by side down the backstretch, and Krikorian has the line going into 3, like the move Navarro put on him a few laps ago. And Blake Camphausen has now moved up to 3rd. He is waiting for his opportunity, but the caution would come out again with 8 laps to go, as Scott Dollitz in the 18 pushes up into Andy Pearson off of 2. Dollitz will go spinning to the inside. David Krikorian leads on the restart. He is looking at his first career victory, but he's got the hungry Ricky Navarro breathing down his neck. Blake Camphausen sits in 3rd in the best position he's ever been in. But coming to 2 laps to go, Camphausen has to pit, as well as Namimura, Dale Underwood, and several others. Fuel has become an issue from out of nowhere. And on the next lap, Michael Madrigal and Zach Gott had to pit as well. What a tough break for all these drivers who were running up front with just a handful of laps to go. But in the meantime, David Krikorian and Ricky Navarro have taken the white flag. They seem to be good on fuel. Krikorian has about a 2-car length gap over Navarro as he comes through turns 3 and 4, and David Krikorian will take his first ARLA Elite Series victory. Taylor Brillen finishes in 3rd behind Krikorian and Navarro. Gary D'Souza fell back a bit after starting in 2nd, but he took advantage of everyone's fuel issues to finish 4th. Bigsby Foot continues his strong season with a 5th place finish tonight. Robert Scott also fell behind after the race got going, but rallied back to finish in 6th. Barry Spangler came from out of nowhere to score his first top 10 finish. Cody Richards, who won this race last year, comes home 8th tonight. Jared Anderson finishes 9th in car number 9. He's been quietly pulling out some strong results this year. And then Packer Carroll rounds out the top 10. And now it is time for round number 2. Kevin Monroe captures his 2nd Smash Beer Pole Award of the season. Ricky Flush started on his outside, and in 3rd is Alex Graff, replacing the suspended Laura Cyrus. Great qualifying effort from Graff. Team Master Cup regular Zach Duff also qualified very well in the 49 Zenith, replacing the suspended Henrietta Laverne. Duff is up to 4th, running behind Rene Ricarmier, and there he goes. He gets a big run on Ricarmier for the 3rd spot, but he's not done yet. He's going to try to get his nose on Graf going into 3, and he will take 2nd from Alex Graf. We believe that Zenith Development wants Duff in one of their Master Cup cars in 2012, as his contract with Volpe expires at the end of the season. Nicole Moreno is replacing the suspended Mike Howard this week, but she is not nearly as impressive as the other substitutes, as she is running towards the back of the field at the moment. And she would be the victim of the first caution as Leigh Gruel gets into her coming off at turn 2. Turning her into the inside wall and sending her for a spin. Everybody pitted under that yellow, and Kevin Monroe continues to lead on the restart, with Allie Riggs in 2nd and Rene Ricarmier in 3rd. And up until last week, this was the top 3 in the point standings for much of the season, so they probably have more of a desire to beat each other than anybody else in the field. But here comes Herbie Finkelberg to spoil the party. His teammate won round 1, and now he wants to make it a sweep for Speed Vision. He sweeps into 2nd and now tries to work on chasing down Kevin Monroe, but Alex Graf gets a run back around the 96, and Ricky Flush is going to follow him or not, as Flush washes up the track. And in the meantime, Graf challenges Monroe for the lead down the backstretch, and he will get it going into 3. And behind Finkelberg, Rene Ricarmier moves up into 4th. Wyatt Dyers does not make the greatest first impression in the ARLA Elite Series as he pushes up the track into Ryan Griffin and Rachel Gonzalez, triggering a pileup on the backstretch. Gonzalez goes for a ride through the air and then almost gets flipped over by Lucas Hunter, Philip Borland, Zach Webster, Nico Petrov, Scott Morales are involved. I also saw Tyson Lautenschlager get pinched into the wall, and there's more trouble up ahead as Makoto Yamada gets onto the track right into Philip Borland. He bounces off the wall, he slides down the track and gets going again, but then he gets clobbered by Wyatt Dyers and Derek Dudding. And I do have to say that for once, this was not Derek Dudding's fault. I'm not sure how fast Yamada thought he could go on the apron, but clearly this was a very avoidable mistake. Alex Graf leads on the restart. Scott Morales, Ryan Griffin, and Tyson Lautenschlager are on the tail end of the lead lap. Graf tries to cut through traffic as Edwin Schwartzlowski takes 2nd from Herbie Finkelberg, as Finkelberg gets stuck behind Scott Morales. And Schwartzlowski is still coming as Graf gets held up behind the 35. There goes the 66. Edwin Schwartzlowski will take the lead, and Graf will quickly lose several positions. Schwartzlowski, who hails from Austria, established himself as a successful road racer in Europe despite having lost his right arm several years ago. And now Schwartzlowski has taken very well to American oval racing as he tries to maintain his lead over Rene Ricarmier. But a few moments later, his teammate Brenda Riggs is going to get by him to take the lead. Riggs is the only full-time M&J driver to have not won a race this year, but she seems to have a strong car in the early stages of this race. CJ Cameron is making his way up towards the front as you see that Brenda Riggs has just been shuffled out of the lead. Cameron had a very strong start to the 2011 season, winning in his debut at Texas, but since then his performance has dropped off a little bit, but you can bet that he'll certainly be trying to redeem himself tonight. The leaders would eventually encounter the slower cars. Tyson Lautenschlager just went 2 laps down, and now Kevin Monroe is about to work on Lucas Hunter, who is missing his hood. The third caution came out as Brenda Riggs pushes up the track into Ricky Flush, and CJ Cameron comes in and finishes off the 67, spinning her off to the inside. It appears that Cameron doesn't tolerate other drivers leaning on his teammate. Kevin Monroe leads on the restart. He has several cars in front of him. Herbie Finkelberg sees an opportunity as Monroe gets held up by Jason Kruger, and Finkelberg will take the lead. But we get our 4th caution moments after the restart as Nicole Moreno gets involved in her 2nd incident of the day. Benji Flynn and Philip Borland get together, which sends the 610 spinning. Herbie Finkelberg leads on the restart. The leaders now have a clear track in front of them. Edwin Schwartzlowski is 2nd with Rene Ricarmier in 3rd. Ricarmier has had a dismal past couple of weeks, and he would certainly like to stay up front tonight. Hawk Slider appeared to start in park last week, but tonight he is running up inside the top 15. Slider has Alex Graf breathing down his neck. Graf has fallen back a little bit. Slider is certainly one of the more confident drivers in the series, but he hasn't quite been able to back up his promises. from the beginning of the year. Back up front, CJ Cameron takes the lead away from Herbie Finkelberg with Kevin Monroe in tow, but Monroe decides that Cameron's few seconds in the spotlight were a few seconds too long, and he will assume the lead of the race once again. Dan McKay is running up inside the top 10 in one of his better runs in the Greaseburger machine. However, we believe that McKay will be booted out of that car in order to make room for Casey Campbell, but McKay has a very close relationship with Last Row Autosport, so it's very possible that he could go over there next year. Speaking of Last Row Autosport, Nicole Moreno holds up Kevin Monroe, opening up the door for CJ Cameron and Ricky Flush. Monroe will only fall back to third as the leaders have quite a gap over everybody else. Todd Rudarschik thinks that it's his turn to wreck Nicole Moreno and pinches her up into the wall, sending both cars for a spin. Dan McKay and Hawk Slider get a small piece of that. Jason Teller and Matas Kaisamiris both have some pretty significant hits. Cars 48 and 11 will drop out of the race. Both White Mountain cars lead on the restart with CJ Cameron at the head of the field. Kevin Monroe is still in third with Herbie Finkelberg fourth. But the caution came out again right after the restart as Jason Kruger gets into Scott Morales coming off of turn 2. Tyson Lautenschlager, AJ Young, Ryan Griffin, and Cletus McGuffey also get a piece of that. CJ Cameron continues to lead on the restart with less than 10 laps to go. Cameron gets a pretty good start as Flush is not able to make a move yet. Both Flush and Cameron are looking for their second career victories. The leaders are single file through 1 and 2. They got pretty equal starts, and you're going to see a shoving match of sorts between Allie Riggs and Ebenezer Quiggles, but they got that sorted out. But a few moments later, Flush sees an opportunity and powers by his teammate, with Kevin Monroe trying to follow him, but Monroe pushed up the track and almost into the 313. This will give Flush a massive lead going into turn number 3. And from that point on, car 31 had no competition as Ricky Flush will come down the front stretch to take his second career ARLA Elite Series victory. With Monroe second and Ricarmier third, and we had a crash coming to the line. Jason Bates hits the wall off of 4 and bounces off Benji Flynn, sending him for a spin down the front stretch. He gets going again, but he is clobbered by Ryan Griffin, who collects Jason Kruger as well. CJ Cameron fell to 4th. Herbie Finkelberg completes a great night for Speed Vision by finishing in 5th. Edwin Schwartzlowski has another good run, hanging on to 6th. Siju Dejao has one of his better runs of the year. However, he will be booted from that 37 car come Rockford, but he already has a ride lined up with Kurt Walker Motorsports for that race and 2012. Allie Riggs finishes 8th after running in the top 10 for most of the night. Alex Graff finishes an impressive 9th in what will most likely be his final start of the season. And then Lake Ruel rounds out the top 10, beating his teammate Zach Duff for the position. And now let's look at our point standings with just 2 races left in the season. Monroe starts to build up more of a cushion over his rivals with his second place finish. Everybody in the top 10 is chasing their first championship, but Monroe has been in the series for longer than anyone else in the top 10. Rene Ricarmier, who is in 4th, 78 points back, could have an advantage at Decatur next week. Both of his victories have come on road courses, but even with his abilities on road courses, Ricarmier is still approaching long shot territory, as are Allie Riggs and Jacob Eichholz. Taylor Brillin, CJ Cameron, and Ricky Flush are already long shots unless the leaders experience serious problems. Harry Asinola, Michael Madrigal, and Bixby Foot I don't think are mathematically eliminated yet, but realistically, they're pretty much done. And now let's look at 11 through 20. Joseph Howard is 152 points behind Monroe, but his title hopes are also realistically over. Andy Pearson is 12th. Edwin Schwartzlowski is 13th. He's been making up a lot of ground lately, but as far as the title is concerned, it's too little too late. Robert Scott is 14th. 1 point separates Gary D'Souza and Brenda Riggs. Rip Tyler is 17th. Lake Ruel 18th. Nick Howard 19th. And Packer Carroll rounds out the top 20.